And wear your best clothes if you don't have any. Oh, I see.
They certainly need no introduction, but please give a round of applause for Anika.
Yes. I'm here today to discuss with all of you the evils of music. And I am uniquely positioned to do so as an individual who, when I hear music, I immediately hear the words of the music. I'm aware that there's some sort of an organized pattern of sound which is construed to constitute music in the popular imagination. But what I experience is more of an onslaught of verbiage. I mean, to say nothing of wordless music, it's another butterfly altogether. Okay. Why is it that more than cinema, visual art, or even that special category of question, who is beautiful? In the realm of music, everyone is certain that they know what's good, even in such cases as mine, when I've been assured that my ear isn't what it could be. As one whose musical perceptions are apparently not that sophisticated, I am fortunate to be able to offer a kind of informative ignorance here. This is where perhaps I bring forth a classic tinfoil hat argument, which is that if you assail your brain repeatedly with whatever sequences of words, again and again, they will seep into some unknown recess of the brain and forever influence one's conduct. I do not think that we understand this process well enough to manipulate it successfully. I.e., I cannot look in the mirror in the morning and say, I am a golden, luminous being of pure benevolence, and all upon whom I gaze are blessed by my eyes, and just go around feeling like that. But I do think there's some hazard in telling myself 7 or 12 or 14 times, I wanna rock and roll all night and party every day. I wanna rock and roll on. Okay, yeah, maybe maybe this is not the gnosis, the blessing of wisdom that I wish to incessantly pour into my unconscious or into whatever pocket realm my sort of discursive mind connects with. So that's sort of a framing conceit for you. And if it were already too woo with that, just leave. So I want to pause it here. There's a form of hygiene for those already in the belly of the whale, by which I mean caught in a cycle of culture wherein culture perpetuates itself upon us and we perpetuate it, and we're so much mulch in a jungle of signification. Given that you are already in the belly of the whale, there are perhaps a few prophylactic methods to slow the process of digestion. And I'm going to try to explore those. everyone who says, music saved my life, go ahead and flail about it if you disagree, but I think someone who says music saved my life, which is the sort of the central objection I anticipate hearing here, might just as well have said, hearing certain lyrics at a critical time saved my life. Would they have been dead in a world without pre-recorded music? No, maybe not. I mean, they probably would have said, Catcher in the Rye saved my life. They would have said, Keats's Ode on Melancholy saved my life. They would have said, having one actual friend saved my life. Or possibly making music and dumping all of this sewage into other people's hearts saved my life. Would they have been dead in a world without pre-recorded music? No. If anything, they probably needed their music to insulate them from worse music. We are in the midst of an infuriating noise arms race. We are racing toward total cacophony. Even from the successful musician's vantage, the way things are arranged now is not exactly a bed of roses. Just envision him. He felt thwarted in some relationship when he was 17. He poured his childish frustration into a song that became a hit, and now, 40 years later, he hears a permutation of it while on hold at the bank. He has paid 6 cents every time his song is broadcast, yet he must dwell for the rest of his life in a purgatory of his own making, galled by the spectral presence of his own infantile sentiment. Even worse for someone who records a true evocation of rare and heartfelt perception, only to hear it duplicated infinitely. Oh, 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 Ozempic, you know, never believe it's not so. Meanwhile, a sage who apparently considers himself more a songwriter than a musician sings to us, I can wait a long, long time before I hear another love song. In fact, the chief grievance to be brought here, the unforgivable thing about music, is that it inspires love. Not the natural love that arises between compatible souls, but an insipid, canned form of romantic partnership that we inherit from our malevolent forefathers by means of the oldies. When I recall the long car rides of my childhood, I can remember what seemed at the time sublime and strange songs like Solitary Man, The Sound of Silence, The Crystal Ship, or dare I say it, Stairway to Heaven, which has still not entirely been reduced to gelatin, even after decades of incessant airplay. But the vast majority of the songs bore the monotonous message, though through melodies quite diverse, that a life devoid of a particular form of monogamous, lifelong romantic love would be barren and miserable, and that no sacrifice is too great for the maintenance of this exalted, paired condition. The woman about whom all the men sing is a sort of coat rack upon whom exaggerated moral attributes are draped. She's an angel made of candy until she becomes a monstrous tormentor, but no human face ever emerges. The women's songs, when they're not maternal toward the beloved, usually seem to express a cajoling servility, like a zookeeper trying to get a bear to swallow a peanut butter covered tranquilizer pill. But no accounting for taste. On the other hand, my note says, music can be worse when it's good. So I'm assailed by an effective evocation of a very intense emotion while I am trying to pick out a box of cereal. All art can bear the contagion of stupid ideas, but music is unique in its faculty for bypassing analysis. Upon waves of melody are born some of the most insipid, harmful, ill-conceived phrases ever expressed. You would be ashamed to utter the words you would gladly sing. I have here, for every Woody Guthrie, there is a Kanye West. I have also written, enjoyment does not rhyme with boyfriend. And it also doesn't distinctly not rhyme with boyfriend in a way that's tolerable. It has this, it's in an uncanny place. But I digress. Music is a superb technology for dumping stupid verbal trash into your brain where it will proliferate until you die. The better crafted the purely oral element, the greater the ideological hazard. Even the internet has not saved us from this one last form of mass media, even though certain other forms of media garbage that were foisted on the public seem to have withered and fallen off the vine. You go to an ancient cliffside town in Italy in November, you still can't get a sandwich without hearing, "All I want for Christmas is you." It is dangerous to hate music because if you try to crush it, it will flow right out of your fist. We may admit that we hate almost all music, but it does us no good. You can't crush it, you can't fling it away from you, and there isn't a big enough apocalyptic fire to boil away that entire ocean. We used to fight the music industry in a way that mirrored its dysfunction. So intense and so obviously justified is your aversion to the chart toppers that now you must give a black eye to anyone who looks like they might tolerate a synthesizer. In its flouting of any reasonable standard of taste, interest, or beauty, popular music bred severe reactions on all sides. Rabid subcultural loyalties, wrathful micro-factions, and with them come the self-appointed experts who may know little, but they do know how to sneer. And all that identity. In some respects, the cure in the form of independent music as it used to be defined was worse than the disease. I'm sure the kids could form rabidly judgmental and myopic factions around visual art or shoes or bicycles, but there is something in the nature of music that renders it vulnerable to this kind of abuse. It culminates in a bunch of people crowding together into a little room, trying to impress one another or be superior to one another in terms of a narrowly defined ideal without necessarily forming substantial relationships. A scene is somehow not a community, though it can aspire. And now we have heard that whales do this to each other. Do you know about the whales? The whales have a new song every year. They make a circuit around the globe, and there's an avant-garde whale that comes, the first one. He's made a new variation of the song, the mating song that they sing, and all the other whales emulate the song, and the whales that are bad at learning the new song do not reproduce. This is what happens when you're at the top of the food chain. This is what you're reduced to somehow.
Understand how whales feel about climate change?
I might be able to understand how whales feel about climate change. Profound innovations every day. Yeah.
They love it.
Okay, so yeah, even educated fleas do it. They exclude each other on a musical basis. Rigid cultural factions are one ill the internet seems to have mitigated in a way, perhaps by enabling them to proliferate so rapidly that they regularly choke one another out, like when you've sown 1,000 poppy seeds in your side yard. When I see emo, goth, otaku, squirrel girls lip-syncing to Debbie Harry accelerated to an Alvin and the Chipmunks pitch, there is a smile that eclipses the initial wince. The boundaries of culture, especially of incredibly granular genre culture, have always been porous, and we were guilty of pretending otherwise. It all stemmed from a central fallacy, which I would like to blame music for, if I only could. Young people are prone to believing that shared preferences or tastes can, in any way whatsoever, constitute a basis for social relationships. Another social evil of music, besides love and community, it's selfish deployment in shared spaces, not just the constant abuse of music by bars, restaurants, and drugstores, which is to be taken for granted, but by individuals. It is a divine gratification to listen to music you have chosen. It is an infuriating debasement to listen to music someone else wants to listen to. Everyone has to listen to music more frequently than ever, while musical skill and literacy are fair to middling, way below what they would be in the absence of recording technology so far as we know. But even the karaoke version is still better than hearing exactly the same songs in exactly the same way, day in, day out. We enjoy the spectacle of a jilted, thoroughly drunk man howling like a husky into a microphone. It makes a pop song almost seem like an actual song. Even aside from this noise factory, which I've been attempting to describe, we live in a world teeming with parasitic homunculi, contagious thoughts that wish to claw their way into your brain and reproduce there wantonly. The memes they were called before memes as we now know them. Possibly no one finds the analysis I've laid out of music as a form of mass media even mildly controversial. Fair enough. But I want to ask, who among us can acknowledge that at this point it would be better to throw the baby out with the bathwater? That we would sacrifice the glimmering and melting fairy castles of the Cocteau twins that hang in an eternal haze at the bottom of the garden, beckoning. I would yeet even Bluebell Knoll into the sun in order to silence forever the echoes of, here's the situation, been to every nation, no one's ever made me feel the way that you do. You know my motivation, given my reputation. Please excuse me, I don't need to be rude, but tonight I'm loving you. Ooh, oh, ooh, oh, oh, tonight I'm loving you.
We're doing karaoke tonight.
I'm not saying that. This is a mating song to freeze forever the loins of anyone who hears it. I know this all reeks of what is for me an unusual purism, an impulse I have sought not to indulge. We are all here because we know that the seeking of final solutions is the problem. But given that I cannot carry out my genocidal impulse toward music itself, what is left to me? And here I've made a list of options to fight back. The universal remote, question mark? It's a technological strategy. It could work. It might be obsolete. On the individual scale, when someone wants to make you listen to a song, you could try biting them and running away. Wads of cotton in the ears and lash yourself to the mast. Another strategy I've seen brilliantly deployed, we can arrogate the chart toppers to ourselves and make them attributes of us. Carrie Sealine, may her memory be for a blessing, haunts me in drugstores and supermarkets by means of Cyndi Lauper's Time After Time, which was played at her funeral. You could join me in coldly stripping away the melodic trappings of the top hits of yesterday and today, so we can stare in horror at their malformed lyrical skeletons. However, it behooves us, as anarchists, to cultivate a kind of refinement in our manner of hating things, of hating the way everything is organized. Really, the solution here is the same one you have to muster whenever you feel oppressed by a sense of contagion. Whenever you feel afraid of contagion, you have to remember that you are a swarm of bacteria. You aren't even distinct from the bacteria. You are just millions of bacteria. A civilization of bacteria is your body. And for all intents and purposes, also your mind. You have to summon your own rival homunculi. It's literally a spiritual battle. You have to choose music very deliberately. And unfortunately, you have to pollute the world further by making your own music. You want to try to put out more waste than you ingest, even though it's completely impossible, given the current conditions. The genie will not go back into the bottle. So it is with technology, even the most ancient of technologies. Until then, let us dream together of a world where, in the midst of a protracted 5-year breakup, a complex, guilt-ridden, emotional struggle, I can go to the grocery store and I can pick up a cabbage and I can just decide which cabbage to buy without having to simultaneously hear, I can't live with or without you. That's it, that's all I got. I am hoping for vegetable throwing. With or without you. Almost got it. All right, we got Mr. Finzel in the front.
I'm assuming this is going to turn into an earworm contest. Everyone's going to put out an earworm. But there's this great book by Alfred Bester called The Demolished Man. And there's police, in this science fiction novel, there's police telepaths everywhere. And he's plotting murder. But he finds the world's most annoying jingle. And he gets it going in his head. And he's able to successfully commit the murder. Let me just read one paragraph of this. A fictional advertising jingle is called Tensor Said to Tensor. A fictional advertising jingle from the science fiction novel The Demolished Man. His age-line nonsense jingle originally intended as a theme song for a TV series about a crazy mathematician. In making it, every psychological trick down to the known to the advertising industry was put to use. The melody was the quintessence of every melodic cliche Wright had ever heard, no matter what melody you tried to remember. It invariably led down to the path of familiarity. Tensor said to tensor. Its very stickiness backfired, however, as people got so annoyed it had to be withdrawn at great cost. Anyways, the earworm might come in handy when the telepath is trying to do the decline. So now our
I don't know if it can be withdrawn, though. I think that's the hazard. Yep. Yeah, I can just, I'll hand you this sloppy packet.
Can I do my earworm announcement?
Yes.
Everybody have fun tonight. Everybody wang chum tonight.
Fuck you.
Definitely going to turn later now.
That's a false dichotomy. I was wondering on your thoughts on how music is weaponized to drive women housed out of particular areas at night.
I can't speak to the cows, but I noticed they play Beethoven in front of the 7-Eleven by a similar logic.
How's that? Okay.
Doesn't work on me.
They used Celine Dion in Guantanamo to torture people.
Wow.
Yeah. I would not have been tortured. I would have been like, just again, play it again. Yes.
That's because you're a master magician. It's not because people should have to listen to Celine Dion. You can't make yourself the barometer for this. It's not really ethical.
Oh, for doing earworms, I was afraid, I was petrified.
Are you anticipating my question? That's very rude. I do, in fact, have a question. It's about distracted enculturation. Will you take, this approach to any other media, do you think? Would you ever, because I'd like to hear your thoughts on, perhaps, how other just broadcast influences get under your skin, might get under one's skin, how to combat that.
I think a genocidal program to eradicate architecture would it would pose even greater inconveniences.
I think it's an interesting point that like attempts to influence you that are sort of at the periphery of your perception is like always much more insidious, and like you have to reckon with things face on when they're presented to you. Like if you're talking to someone and you're like, this is anarchism, you explain to it what it is, they're gonna sit there and argue with everything you say. But if you just make the principles that you're talking about like seem sort of self-evident and just talk about them in a sideways way, people will sit there and agree with you all day long. And that's like how capitalist consent is manufactured, is like by these sideways means. It's like the example like I think of a lot with music is like how like hip hop in the 90s, like there's all these conspiracy theories about how like a lot of these record labels were also heavily invested in the private prison industry, and they started like taking and having the artists amplify like all the most violent and criminal elements of the music as a way to like just convince people to shoot each other basically, because they wanted like more prisoners to make Dell computers and license plates. And like 20-30 years later, like if you listen to like that music, it's still just like hyper violent or whatever. Which is awesome.
Would that we in this room could wield a comparable influence. Imagine what we could do against architecture and against music and against visual art.
Okay, I want to devil's advocate and go outside music against side Anika.
Do it.
Because, so it's like if we're getting rid of music or singing, I assume we're keeping talking, though? Good. Right? Okay, yeah. So it's like if we think of what sound is, like sound is, bear with me, I'm gonna tell you what sound is. But like sound is action, right? So it's like if I'm knocking on this table, it's like my hand hitting the wood, right? And then if we think about singing, like for me, I think about it as the affect of like the action of the world, like working itself upon us or us upon the world, right? And so singing is charged with that act, like there's a sort of embodiment, I feel like, that comes with singing and music that language or like speaking falls like utterly short of. I don't know. That's where I'm gonna start this.
We'll have to get rid of the body as well.
We're gonna have to get rid of the Okay, we're getting rid of the body, we can get rid of the music.
Get rid of tonal languages. I guess I wanted to substitute verse for music.
Though I did have another thought, which is a lot of what you said has occurred to me back in the days when I was at the mercy of the radio, like for entertainment while I was like driving, you know, in an hour in like Bay Area traffic. Is that they have all the like I have to listen to you know, whatever was popular at the time, and I felt victimized by it, which is why like the first thing I did when I got a new car was I made sure it had like the Bluetooth function so I could play songs off my phone. But my thought is that was still infinitely preferable to the radio shows that they would play, the morning talk show pattern. And if we got rid of music, my concern would be that something would replace it, and the thing that would replace it is just people vapidly sharing their just horrible base opinions.
And Howard Stern says it.
Yeah, it wasn't a Howard Stern, like in the safe way. It might be worse actually. That's just on the side of pro music.
I think there is still a cock rock station in the Bay Area. And I heard another joke about Monica Lewinsky
Whoa.
last week. There are people in this room who weren't born yet when the Monica Lewinsky incident occurred.
Yeah.
Do you think at some point, like, music will just be entirely subsumed by true crime podcasts? Like, you just go to the grocery store and it's like vocal fry and like some 30 something, like, white people just like, and they're like, oh my god, sisters. Like, then they cut her head off. Oh my god.
To be perfectly frank, I would so much rather buy a cabbage while listening to a detailed account of multiple dismemberments. But you know, it's a matter of personal taste.
I have another music argument.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of all the ones I can against you right now. One is I feel like music can push like singing because biggest thing you're taking against music is music with singing with words. But I feel like the singing can sometimes like push language into this sort of like it's like you were saying with semantic satiation, like that linguistic accelerationism that like pushes words to the extent that they become emptied out of meaning. And like even thinking about like yeah, there are different vocalists who do that in just that like the affect or the melodies of what they're singing are more powerful than the actual words that are holding them. Like sometimes I'll like listen to a song and like what they're saying seems like so, I don't know, you go to read it and it's like they're two different things or something. Like even with like rap, I guess. Like I feel like rap also does a good job of like creating these like empty vessels for like rhythm and rhyme, and it's the same thing. You go to like read the lyrics on paper, and it's because it doesn't have that like aggression of like the music behind it. It's like becomes this like dull, brutal thing to read, where it's like I don't know. I feel like I guess music can sometimes like push language beyond itself, or like you can break out a language through singing.
I think this speaks to exactly what my concern is, which is that the sense of the words will somehow seep in with the sound. The sound will render the sense more palatable.
Okay.
So, yes, okay, I'm listening to a song about a man who thinks he wants to, I'm thinking of ODB immediately, right? He wants to have sex with these women, but he deems their complexion, which is similar to his own, to be like of an excremental color. And we're all like, we think this is very funny because it's been couched in this like artful context. The purely oral context of it gives the words a credence that they would never ever merit or receive under other conditions. So in fact, you are making my argument for me, Athena.
So it's almost like by creating such like a fucking like boring, mundane realm around words that maybe we'll just walk away from them. Whereas like music keeps us
There are words that you would never listen to if they were addressed to you that you will gladly hear in a song.
That's useful to actually.
That's okay.
If you're aware of that tension between the register, the music, the feeling the music gives you, and that it's like opening you up maybe to the words. If you're aware of that pathos, that I don't know, tension between the lyrical content and the power of the music or whatever, does that kind of inoculate you against the effect, or do you think sort of involuntarily, if the music's really dope, the words get in, or is that not part of the argument?
I think it mostly just embitters and alienates people and makes them no fun at parties. I don't know if it protects them at all. I think I'm inviting all of you to dine on the bitter gall that is already choking me. So I won't be alone.
I'm curious, do you see something different in recorded sounds than just someone immediately playing something, or is it just worse?
Yes. It's if you come into my house and sing me the words of an Old Dirty Bastard song, I'll tell you to leave. We're done.
So it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
There's no helping it. You in the back.
Yeah, how will we know when our war on music is making real progress?
When the gutters run with blood. But in a beautiful, holy silence.
Love it.
Nothing but sparrows,
Why are the sparrows allowed to sing?
buzzing flies.
They're so French as birds.
Is it sound or is it music?
People call it music. To me, it is and was, generally.
I noticed in your tirade speech, you mentioned, you specified several kinds of recorded music. And so would you personally feel better if there was a live musician playing the same songs over the PA system at Safeway?
Yes, because I can intervene.
So I have here the opening line of the Iliad, seeing the use of the anger of Achilles, son of Peleus. And so that Milton and Blake know about the muse, seeing muse or tell muse. But would you ever invoke a muse? Would you ever get the muse? You wrote that, maybe the muse inspired this whole talk.
Despite my hatred of music, the muse has come to me and given me songs. On occasion. I'll admit it. But no, this was a totally constipated process, just for your information. It was an agony from top to bottom. Thank you for asking.
How many times have you been forced to listen to banjo by Google?
More than 25. Fewer than 3,000. Not as many times as I've had to listen to Stairway to Heaven.
Does musical theater have a special place in this town, or is it just kind of the same along everything else?
Its blood is in the gutter, looking at the stars.
Musicals makes me start to want to join your team. Everyone bursting out the same song. It's fucking nightmare fuel.
How does instrumental music fit into your life?
I think that instrumental music, for the time being, is granted a cautious exemption from the genocidal policy, subject to revision.
Why is it so cautious? What are the pitfalls you see?
Well, house music comes readily to mind. It's like, I spent 2 minutes making this song, but you'll spend 45 minutes listening to it.
So it seems like part of the problem is with music that reinforces the existent.
Yes.
is there a possibility for music that doesn't do that?
That's where all the top hits really come from. The ones that endure were conceived in an effort to fight. But yes, as I said, like, we're being digested. We've been devoured by the many heads of the Hydra, and we're in its, perhaps in its esophagus or in its intestines, but we can try to slow our decomposition.
There's a part at the beginning where you're talking about how, like, ideas, or I guess in this case songs, like, sort of bring about their own reality, like, basically the idea of, like hyperstition, where they're, like, you know, it's like the Nick Land thing where they're, like, equipoise between, like, fiction and technology so that they become a reality or whatever, and then, but it's like, what if you like the hyperstition? Like, you're talking about, like, certain scenes or like music or whatever, like people that like certain things, like that almost creates a hyperstition in the place of community. But if you're not a big fan of community, maybe the hyperstition is like preferable to the community.
I think I don't want to speak for the younger generation, but I think they experience community in the hyperstition. And I don't want to be reactionary in any way, of course. But yeah, no, I mean, we're gonna have like copies of our hands, shaking copies of our hands underneath a banner bearing the image of our hands. Like, there's no getting out of that. But does it have to be like, baby love? Baby love.
Great song.
Okay, all right. Baby.
Joe from Hey Joe, right? It was wrong for him to kill the lady, his old lady, just for messing around with another man, right?
I agree.
So, and the song is bitching. So you're listening to it, you're like, this is fucking rad, you know, great, nice, great. But Joe's being shit for the old lady, right? But then at the end, when he's like, ain't no hangman gonna put a rope around me, you kind of like, I mean, even though he did kill this lady, you don't want the hangman to get him. Is that okay?
I think there's some real pathos there. It doesn't make me want to party every day. I mean, I can say that in its defense.
Okay, maybe this is a stretch, but like Bataille said that thing where it's like the absence of myth is like the greatest myth of all, or whatever. And couldn't it be like the same with like song? You know what I mean? Like, because at a certain point we're talking about genres of music. You know what I mean? Because like some of the experimental shit gets pretty fucking weird, and it's like, I guess I'm trying to blur the lines between like sound and music or something. Does that make sense?
I think the motto of our committee will be, the absence of song is the greatest song of all. So thank you for that. That's very helpful. How are we doing on time? 10 minutes? Should I just open the mic for anyone who wants to sing? Watch out, we have an imminent threat here.
Why is it so hard to let go of music? Like, I don't feel like it would be that hard for me to like never hear a song again.
You'd have to move into the woods.
I want to do that, but like, where's the woods?
But don't you think that it'll continue to reverberate throughout the
Yeah, some songs can be unhearing.
There's no escape.
I know, that's the issue. So, like, what do I do? How do I kill that part?
I mean, I've met people that are into the music.
I think it's evident that we, as a culture, we have a collective terror of silence
Yeah.
and a dread of any form of reflection that might be facilitated by that abyssal deep, right?
So is it a bottom?
So my solution is to just pollute the air in my own manner as much as I possibly can. Hence the present discourse. What about just screaming?
Well, I mean, that could be a kind of music.
Is it wordless screaming?
Yeah, it's like, but it's, you know, it's still, screaming is emotive, which is what part of the problem is.
I think that the voice can pass into use as an instrument of pure sound, maybe. As much as a violin.
So you would rather silence than screaming?
I would rather screaming than tonight I'm loving you.
What about Peter Frampton?
What?
What about Peter Frampton?
What about him?
Like the talking guitar?
You're gonna be getting so many places.
That's a real place.
It's called the, like, I'm the man in the box.
Yeah.
It's called a voice box.
I think Andrew Ballou does the animal noises with his guitar pretty good. Like a cat. I like that.
So I sang a sketch at Hotel California during my first time, and now I'm going to bring on the band. Nothing but blues and Elvis and somebody else's favorite song.
Okay, what about John Cage, where it has 33 seconds?
It's annoying, but for a completely different reason.
Okay, what about concrete music?
Intolerable. But
Okay, what if the concrete music were the sounds of the death police?
Well, I mean, you bring up an interesting point.
What if it was recording of police officers dying en masse?
Yeah.
Their screams.
Only if it's live.
Well, I mean, you bring up an interesting point because all that makes it music is that we frame it as music.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the conceit of all the concrete music and the 433 and stuff. So, like, I don't know. Is there something like inherently like manipulative about that framing? Like, as soon as something is framed in music, it's supposed to act on you in this kind of emotionally manipulative way.
And everything else isn't. Everything else is not.
Whereas a bird song like might act on you in
Yeah.
like that sort of way, but it's kind of not supposed to. It's that's not really like what we can see what it's like.
And
Is
those
that
are-
kind of what is it the root of music being such a problem?
maybe after the recording of the dying screams of dead cops had been like packaged and construed as music, it would lose some of its delight.
No, I totally agree with that. Yeah. But the thing is you were talking about the process of reification. That's what you're actually saying.
Is that true?
You're talking about a process of reaffirming the existent. And, you know, I doubt anyone in the room disagree with me. But, I mean, it's also like you took a very narrow view on what music was right from the outset. So,
I was cheating a little, yeah. But I would say that there is that which is perceived to exist purely because of this curse of our ancestors. Like this conception of human welfare hinging on the dyadic pairing was my chief example. So yeah, that is the existent, but it is also that could be otherwise.
Have you heard Frank Zappa's version of Stairway to Heaven? And Stairway to Gilligan's Island was also a good film.
I have a strategic question to pose to the committee, which is, what should we do with religious factions that ban dancing and song? Are they strategic partners in this endeavor?
Ooh. That is the first difficult question that has been asked. Well done. And I have put myself in mixed company. Is that it? Any further inquiries?
Silence.
those sounds from the nether music.
It's not that. Stop doing that.
If you believe in music, clap your hands.
Oh, man, that's the worst year over here.
This is the song that this is the song that
Do you want to take a pause or should I just go ahead?
Give it a couple minutes.
Okay. All right, thanks everyone. Thank you for your valuable input on our program.
Yeah, we were really proud of you. You just been the only Title I conversation
Did I don't usually use them.
Come with your jacket, sweet. Come with your jacket.
Yeah.
I participated. That was so strange. I actually love that. There's this kind of antinomian thing that they're gonna like venerate the moment that like was trying to eradicate them or something. That's